welcome back to my channel. So today is an evening that I'm sitting here to chat with you, and my intention for making this video is if you're going through a hard time, you can watch this video and hopefully it would encourage you, support you, and nourish you in some way so that you can overcome this hardship whenever that arises in your life. And actually, you know what? I'm making this video for myself too, for when I'm going through a hard time and that I need to listen to my own advice. A lot of the times I write things in my journal, and years later I would look back and I would be like, wow, that girl's got some good advice for herself. So sometimes I like to make things for myself as well, for when I'm rewatching or like re-listening or rereading some of my own stuff for me. But yeah, the intention of this video is for both of us, I guess. We're both sitting here. I know that you've gone through a lot of difficult times and challenges in your life. We may have different challenges, they may look different, but at the core, as a human being, it's all the same. You and I both have experienced sadness, anger, disappointment, times when we felt like we are failures, times when we felt like we're just not good enough, times where we felt insecure about ourselves. So many of these moments, and I wanted to share all of the ways that I have been able to help myself through those times. And when I look back at the years that I really struggled a lot, I realized that the only difference between now and then is that now I have so much compassion for myself. And that is what has made the difference in my life, in my experience, in the way that I feel my way through life. Back in COVID time, 2019 or 20, at that time I was really going through a hard time. And I remember one day I was typing on my phone, am I experiencing depression? I remember at that time I had family issues that were unresolved. My relationship with my parents at that time was like very rocky, and my relationship with myself was also very rocky. I didn't feel like I had any emotional support or stability in my life at the time to really help me understand what I was going through internally. At that time, I was still someone who has just going through the middle of it all, like the middle of the healing journey. In terms of the really messiness of it is what I'm trying to get at. I understood a little bit about how my traumas were affecting me, but I was still learning how they were all affecting me. And I think because of my lack of knowledge and awareness, and also lack of self-regulation, self-compassion skills, it made it very difficult. And if you're on your healing journey, I know that at some point in your life, either you've gone through that, or maybe you're going through that now, or maybe you might experience it at a time in a near future where you will experience a wave of this hardship that feels very internal that comes. And that hardship could very much be generational. It could very much be random. It could be very based on your own psyche, what you are going through at that time. What I have learned about our inner experiences is that sometimes they come from our generation before us. Meaning, if our mom has experienced something at 30 years old, it very much could be that when we come to that age or around that age, we ended up experiencing something similar. We ended up repeating a specific pattern that our previous generation repeated or has had. Uh-huh. That is how generational trauma get passed down automatically. And it's very unconscious because we often aren't aware of those patterns at all. They just happen. One of the books that I've been reading recently on generational trauma is called It Didn't Start With You. And in that book, the psychologist goes very in depth about how generational traumas get passed down automatically through people in our family line that we aren't even aware of, or maybe we don't even have a relationship with. It's passed down biologically, it's passed down through energetic, through subconscious. And so sometimes we repeat certain patterns in our lives and we didn't even know where it came from. Certain kind of emotional habits, depression, anxiety, fear, certain kind of worries about the future or worries about very specific things or areas in our lives, worrying about money or worrying about a relationship or worrying about our health or worrying about a job or whatever that theme is, it's very likely that it's generational. If you cannot pinpoint exactly why you feel the way that you do, it's very much generational. But let's say you were able to pinpoint a very specific cause, like, say you just had a breakup, right? That's a very direct cause. Then, of course, that's a more immediate experience. Regardless of where the hardship is coming from, we experience all hardships, internal and external, in a very internal way. The way that we experience hardships can shape our ongoing relationship with ourselves. What do I mean by that? The way that we learn to handle our hardships is actually a very important skill, is what I've learned. Because when we are happy, it's easy. Life is easy. Having a relationship with ourselves or with anyone for that matter, when things are going well, is very easy. Right? Everyone's happy, you're good. When things are difficult with others and with ourselves, that is when we are challenged. So the skill set of learning to be so loving, understanding, nurturing, and compassionate with ourselves become one of the most important skills to have to navigate through those challenges and to not only overcome them, but to create a life where you build a deeper relationship with yourself through your challenges. You're no longer hating yourself, beating yourself up, making it harder for yourself due to a challenge. You instead become more connected, more in tuned, more loving and compassionate with yourself when you're going through a hard time. It's a very different relationship that you are creating with yourself when you start to bring in the skill of self compassion. And that's essentially the one thing I wanted to share with you today. What does having self compassion with ourselves look like when things are hard? It's easy to say, have self compassion. That statement and that term is all over the internet. It's easy, it's all over the books, it's everywhere. But how do we practice self compassion? What does that look like? And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Self compassion. One of the things that I learned is self regulation. Self compassion starts with the way we treat our body. And I will actually physically show you what that looks like. When I used to have a very difficult time with my relationship with food, I used to binge eat in order to feel safe. Whenever I felt anxious, alone, terrified, abandoned, I would eat. I would eat anything that I could find. I would eat even when I'm not hungry. I would eat at late at night, and I would always say to myself, why am I struggling to lose the weight even though I'm going to the gym consistently? But going to the gym was a way to punish myself. And then eating was a way to compensate for the detrimental feelings that I was feeling inside. One of the practices that really helped me through self-regulation is I put one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly. The heart is the space that brings so much healing. That's why we put one hand on the heart. And our gut holds so much emotion. That is why people say, listen to your gut, right? Or the wisdom of the gut. It's so much emotions are stored in the gut. So we put one hand on the heart, one hand on our stomach. And what you do is you just circulate in a way where you feel like you are, uh, you're like a baby, right? You see yourself like a baby, and you just take good care of yourself. You nurture yourself. You give yourself that physical touch. You really feel your body. You kind of like as if you were a baby. You know, if you were a baby and your baby, you were crying, you would kind of just soothe it. Like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, right? That practice alone, I kid you not, has helped me to lose so much weight. And I know this thing is not about losing weight, but it's about self-regulation. It's about the body feeling safe. And so it doesn't need to use other coping mechanism that's negative and harming to ourselves in order to cope. This could be with addiction. This could be with anything that you're experiencing. It could be maybe a form of mechanism, coping mechanism for you could be escapism, right? Gaming or shopping or binge eating. Avoidance. You're avoiding doing chores. You're avoiding doing your homework. You're avoiding work. You're avoiding meeting this, doing that, right? Certain responsibility in your life. Whatever is your negative self-harming coping mechanism, this is what you want to do in order to retrain your body, in order to rewire your relationship with your body. So use this as often as possible. When I was going through that hard time, I think I did it like multiple times a day. Whenever I felt anxious, sad, alone, whatever the negative emotion, I would come to myself and I would just gently like circulate and hug myself and give myself the physical touch that I need. Because we're all babies, you know, we're all babies. We need the physical nurturing and soothing for us to feel safe. I promise you, if you practice this consistently, you will see changes in the way that you treat yourself. And you will see changes in the way that your body reacts. And maybe if you were like me, you struggle with losing weight, you might actually end up losing a lot of weight. That's what happened to me. Um, it's also mental weight too. It's also emotional weight. It's also a lot of the things that we carry, right? Another practice that really, really helped me is to not criticize myself when I'm going through a hard time. I grew up with my parents criticizing us as children, but that habit came from them criticizing themselves and their parents criticizing them, right? Generational habits and patterns. So I grew up, whenever I had like a mistake, something that I deem as imperfect, something that happened in a way where I didn't expect it to, something that didn't go as I planned, something that was outside of my control, something that I didn't like, something that I deem as dangerous and unsafe and bad and whatever, I would criticize myself. I would be so mean to myself. And this happened so subconsciously. I wasn't like, it wasn't so direct. It was very subtle, right? I would beat myself up. I would say to myself, like, oh, why did I do this? Why did this happen? How could I do this? Like I blamed myself. And if you have this habit of blaming yourself, you would know, right? There are ways that we try to cope with whatever outside of us that we feel like, oh, I don't know how to deal with that. We try to cope with that in a way where we're blaming ourselves, criticizing ourselves, making ourselves wrong, um, internalizing the problem, right? Instead of being like, you know what, this, whatever situation that happened that was very difficult, that was very hard, but this is how I'm going to show up to it. I'm going to show up to it with inner peace. I'm going to show up to it with self-compassion. And that is a skill. It's not an innate born thing. It's not something that, oh, well, this person just knew how to do it. No, it's a skill. So how do we start to practice compassion? Anytime when you make a mistake, something happened in the way that you didn't want it to, or outside of the way you expected it to, some sort of disappointment, some sort of judgment, whatever, come back and tune into your heart and ask yourself, what would self-compassion look like in this moment? What would self-compassion say in this moment? If I was compassionate, what would I say to myself? Right? And the script might be, you know, this didn't happen in the way that I wanted it to, and that's okay. I can handle this. You know, this friendship, this relationship didn't turn out the way that I had hoped, and that's really sad, but that's okay. I'm going to be here with myself, and I'm going to really be here and present and loving with myself, and just be here, right? We don't need to know the answer. We don't need to know, why did this happen? Did I do something wrong? Like, we go into analyzing mode when we feel out of control. But we don't need to do that. We just need to come back and feel into our heart space. When we are able to make the connection with our heart space, that is where the automatic flow of self-compassion and love can start to pour in. It can start to pour into really difficult spaces, right? Ways that we've judged ourselves and all the different things. Take a sip of tea before we continue. Yeah. I'm drinking licorice and peppermint tea. It's been my favorite combination as of late. So if you're watching this and you're going through a hard time, then you know you're not alone. You're really not alone. We all have been through it, and we all go through it times and times again. None of us are excluded from that experience. But I think the beauty of this is that we know we are not going through it alone. We know that when we acquire the skill set of learning how to sit with ourselves, learning how to sit with our emotions, learning how to be present with ourselves, that is when we can truly transform every energy, everything that we experience in this human journey together. The most difficult emotions, grief, pain, disappointment, hurt, betrayal, wounds, like these are deep, deep, intense emotions that sometimes feel like they don't have an ending date. Sometimes they just feel like they're just going on forever. But what our soul truly knows is that all pain is temporary. and the strength of our soul is infinite. And when we can sit and be present with ourselves, we can truly look and feel and see and receive the insight of that experience. And we can transform that purely with our awareness and our understanding and our knowledge and our innate wisdom of that experience. I'm simply sharing what is already in you. I don't hold the key. You hold the key. I'm simply the one to remind you of what it is that you hold inside. So thank you for sitting with me tonight, this evening, or maybe whatever time of the day it is for you. I'm so grateful to have this space to share, to be present with each other, to have a deep, loving, heart-to-heart conversation. I feel with myself that growing up, that was a rare thing for me to have. So I wanted now in my adult life to create and share this with you, with the world, with our community, with myself. It's a healing and transformative space for all. So I'm so grateful and thank you for being here. And if you've liked this video, subscribe to stay with me. There are so many ways to stay in touch. Say hi, say something in the comment. I wish you a beautiful, beautiful day, beautiful night, beautiful time. Bye for now.